Nobody in Atlanta could have predicted the kind of storm that would rise under the harsh reunion lights. The atmosphere inside the studio wasn't just heavy, it was suffocating, pressing down on everyone's chest like a weight they couldn't shake. The audience leaned forward nervously, whispering among themselves, clutching their phones like they already knew history was about to be recorded. Producers gripped their headsets like gamblers clutching dice, muttering frantic instructions that no one seemed capable of following, because when chaos takes over, control is the first casualty. The cast sat stiff, back straight but minds spinning, every nerve buzzing with the knowledge that tonight would not just be another messy reunion, it would be the kind of night etched into the DNA of reality television forever. And when the cameras started rolling, it no longer felt like a reunion. It felt like a countdown to war. The silence broke when Rasheeda finally entered, 4 hours late, and every second of that delay was written across her face. This wasn't lateness wrapped in glamour or shade disguised as playfulness. No, this was lateness soaked in fury, sharpened by hours of pacing, muttering, and promising herself that tonight she would not walk away the victim. Her chin tilted toward the ceiling like a soldier marching into battle. Her jaw clenched so tight it could slice steel, her fists balled by her sides like she was daring anyone to doubt her. Every step across that stage screamed vengeance. Every glance at the crowd, every second of her heavy breathing, announced she wasn't just here to talk. She was here to strike. But across the stage, Yandy didn't flinch. No smirk, no twitch, no raised eyebrow. She sat perfectly still, the calm in the center of a hurricane, and her silence was louder than any insult could ever be. That kind of stillness isn't weakness, it's power. And everybody in that room knew it. They felt the storm forming before the first word was even spoken. When Rasheeda opened her mouth, the words didn't tumble out. They detonated. Sharp accusations poured like broken glass across the room. Jealousy, obsession, podcasts, interviews, family shade, sneaky comments, disses disguised as opinions. She moved fast, too fast, piling insult after insult like she was emptying every bullet she had left in the chamber. But desperation has a sound, and it rang through every syllable. Her voice cracked, her breath caught, her pace rushed, and the room picked up on it instantly. This wasn't confidence. This was a woman cornered by her own history. And before she could wrestle her rage into rhythm, Yandy leaned forward slowly, her calm body language slicing the tension sharper than any scream. Her voice was steady, deadly precise, and when she spoke, the words froze the entire stage in place. Please stop worrying about where my man goes, when your husband had to swab your baby on national TV. The silence that followed wasn't relief. It was shock. A thick, suffocating silence that screamed louder than thunder. Gasps broke across the audience. Producers cursed under their breath, knowing they had just captured something too explosive to ever cut from final editing. Cast members shifted uncomfortably, their wide eyes darting between the two women like they were watching a slow-motion car crash. And fans at home? They fumbled their phones, scrambling to clip the moment before it disappeared, because they knew they had just witnessed the birth of a cultural reset. That one sentence, that DNA drag, cracked the reunion wide open. It wasn't just shade, it was devastation. Everyone remembered the moment Kirk Frost stood on national TV, cotton swab in hand, testing his own child as though trust had never existed in his marriage. It was humiliation carved into the history of reality TV, a scar that no apology, no storyline, no boutique opening could erase. And in a single line, Yandy had ripped that scar back open, forcing it to bleed again in front of millions. Rasheeda tried to laugh, a shaky giggle that cracked like thin glass under pressure. She mocked Yandy for being an outsider, told her to run back to New York, called her dusty, irrelevant, a guest in Atlanta. But laughter that comes from desperation has no rhythm, no bite. It's fragile. And the fragility showed in her trembling hands, her quivering lips, her darting eyes that kept avoiding the one man who should have been defending her, but sat silently, staring at the floor. Every insult bounced back like a boomerang, slapping her with reminders of her own public scars. The hot tub scandal, the 3 earrings scandal, the carousel of mistresses. The crying confessionals replayed season after season like reruns mocking her loyalty. The very ratings she once bragged about had turned into shackles, chaining her to a legacy of humiliation she couldn't shake. And then, calm as ice, Yandy leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that cut deeper than a scream. "Don't throw stones here." Those 4 words detonated across social media before the cameras even cut. Fans clipped the moment instantly, layering TikTok beats under the whisper, editing slow-motion zooms of Yandy's steady eyes. Memes crowned her the queen of reunion reads. Even the cast shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other with the unease of witnesses watching a crown crack in real time. And just when it seemed like Rasheeda might claw her way back, she made the mistake that would haunt her forever. In a desperate scramble for control, she yanked an Atlanta cap from the table, shoved it on her head, and declared herself the true queen of Atlanta. Her voice cracked, her hands shook, her sweat glistened under the harsh lights. The more she screamed Atlanta was hers, the more obvious it became that she didn't believe it herself. And then Yandy, calm and collected, reached into her bag, pulled out her own Atlanta cap, and slid it onto her head with elegance so graceful it felt rehearsed by fate itself. Her words, whispered with venomous grace, sent the room into eruption. "This is Atlanta." The studio combusted. Gasps, screams, laughter, chaos. The audience erupted, the cast looked on in disbelief, and producers knew instantly that this wasn't just drama. This was cultural history. Online, side-by-side edits spread like wildfire. Rasheeda, trembling and cracked, beside Yandy, smooth and steady, crowned by silence. Hashtags flooded the timeline. "This is Atlanta," "A DNA queen," "Crown cracked," trending so fast the reunion overshadowed every news story of the night. This wasn't just another shady read, it was domination, delivered with the kind of composure that becomes legend. And still, Rasheeda's pride refused to retreat. She lashed out harder, dragging Yandy's marriage, sneering about paperwork, mocking her husband, insisting her life wasn't as perfect as it looked. But every word bounced off steel, because the one man who should have been her shield, the one who had humiliated her year after year, sat only feet away, silent. Kirk's silence was louder than any insult Yandy could have thrown. He didn't defend her. He didn't deny. He didn't even blink. And that silence painted her weaker than any insult ever could. Yandy delivered the kill shot with surgical precision, calm as ever, each word crafted to slice through every layer of pride. "I don't need a piece of paper when I've got respect." And respect is something you'll never know, not while you're raising a legacy of your husband's mistakes. The room collapsed into chaos. Cast members gasped, producers clutched their heads, fans online typed in all caps, transforming the line into gospel. Clips spread with captions screaming, "Respect, ratings." And in that instant, it was undeniable. Rasheeda's marriage wasn't remembered for loyalty. It was remembered for scars. Scars replayed on national television, season after season, until they became her identity. When Yandy pulled out her phone and replayed the infamous hot tub clip, holding it high like a mirror, the silence in the room was unbearable. Rasheeda's face drained of color, her jaw trembled, her body stiffened as ghosts clawed from the past into the present. Cast members shifted nervously, producers prayed for someone to interrupt, but no one dared. Online edits layered clown horns over the hot tub footage, looping it like a cruel nursery rhyme. And in that unbearable silence, something inside Rasheeda snapped. Her fist slammed the reunion table, her voice shattered into shrieks, her eyes wild as rage overtook reason. And before anyone could stop her, she lunged across the table, her body charging like a bull into a ring. Gasps thundered through the studio. Crew members scrambled. Cast members shrieked. Erica Mena leapt from her seat in shock. Carly Red screamed warnings. Scrappy cursed under his breath, already bracing for impact. And then it happened. The slap. Sharp. Violent. A sound that echoed across the set like thunder. A blow that rattled the stage to its core. The reunion dissolved into chaos. Chairs scraped, lights swayed dangerously, voices screamed over each other. The set was no longer a reunion, it was a battlefield. And yet, through the storm, Yandy remained unshaken. Even under attack, she didn't lose her crown of composure. Her body steadied, her eyes locked directly into the camera lens, as if she knew the world was watching, as if she knew history was being recorded in that second. Her lips moved slowly, her voice slicing sharper than fists ever could. This is what happens when truth cuts deeper than lies. The producers panicked. Security swarmed and cast members dragged Rasheeda back as she kicked and screamed. Her crown shattered before millions of eyes. Fans online erupted, headlines forming instantly. Rasheeda attacks Yandy on set. The memes declared it not just drama, it was downfall. Not just drama, it was downfall. And that night, under the glaring reunion lights, one queen collapsed while another rose higher without lifting a single finger. The second security locked their arms around Rasheeda. The reunion stage stopped being entertainment and turned into a full-blown disaster zone. Crew members shouted into headsets. The audience screamed like they were front row at a fight they hadn't paid for, and cast members scrambled to process what had just unfolded in front of them. Rasheeda thrashed like a woman possessed, her chest heaving, her voice cracking with rage, spitting out that she was tired of being clowned, tired of people humiliating her family, tired of her scars being replayed every season for laughs. But the louder she shouted, the clearer it became that this wasn't about Yandy anymore. It was about years of wounds that never healed, scars that she carried like chains. She wasn't just fighting her castmate. She was screaming at ghosts, at reruns, at betrayal that lived inside her marriage. And across from her, Yandy was still unmoved. Her calm wasn't arrogance, it was power. She smoothed her jacket, brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, and leaned back in her seat like a queen who knew her crown didn't need defending. Her silence was louder than fists, her composure more cutting than any slap. Fans didn't need captions to understand what they were seeing. They saw one woman unraveling and another glowing with control. Even the cameras caught it, zooming in on Yandy's faint smirk, the look that said everything without saying a word. That image alone was enough to crown her before the episode even aired. The cast couldn't stay quiet. Erica Mena shook her head, her voice carrying just enough for mics to pick it up. This ain't no reunion. This is a breakdown. Carly Red, ever the messy commentator, whispered loud enough for fans to catch. Queens don't lunge across tables, baby. Even Scrappy, usually quick with humor, sat with his arms crossed, muttering in disbelief. She done lost it. But the most damning silence came from Kirk. He sat there like a ghost, his eyes glued to the floor, his mouth sealed shut. He didn't step forward, didn't defend his wife, didn't deny anything. And that silence crushed Rasheeda more than any Red could. Fans watching at home exploded with fury. Why was he never there when it mattered? Why was he always silent? Why did his stillness feel like betrayal all over again? Online, chaos went nuclear. Clips of the DNA drag replayed side by side with the slap. TikTok slowed the footage down to dramatic beats. Instagram edits zoomed in on Yandy's smirk, pairing it with captions like, "Silence is power." Twitter turned the night into a cultural reset. Hashtags exploding in real time. Rasheeda snaps, "Sure DNA queen. This is Atlanta." Memes mocked the slap with clown horns. Edits looped Rasheeda's face into GIFs. And fan pages declared Yandy the new queen of Atlanta without her even having to raise her voice. For years, people pitied Rasheeda as the woman who endured humiliation for the sake of marriage. But pity died on that stage. Now she wasn't pitied. She was mocked, dragged, labeled as the villain who lost control while her rival sat in stillness. And just when the noise hit its peak, Yandy delivered the line that shook the entire building. She leaned forward, her voice low but sharp enough to pierce through the screaming. "Why do you have all this energy for me but none for your husband?" The room collapsed into silence so thick it suffocated. Erica Mena clutched her chest, gasping like the words had hit her too. Carly Red froze with her mouth wide open. Even Scrappy, hardened by years of reunion chaos, muttered under his breath, "Damn." And in that moment, the internet crowned the line as gospel. Fans had been saying it for years, but now Yandy said it to her face. No smoke for Kirk, no defense for herself. Just rage for the wrong target. The truth was undeniable, and Rasheeda had no comeback. Her lips trembled, her jaw clenched, but she sat there silent, drowning under the weight of her own reality. By the time producers called for a break, it wasn't just a reunion anymore, it was a cultural funeral. Blogs rushed out headlines before the sun even rose. Rasheeda attacks Yandy on set. DNA drag breaks the internet. YouTubers scrambled to upload reactions with neon captions like, "The night Atlanta changed forever." Fans plastered timelines with clips of Yandy whispering, "Truth cuts deeper than lies," as if it were scripture. And outside the cameras, the whispers started. Rasheeda, even in meltdown, refused to accept defeat. She told anyone who would listen that she had been set up, that producers had pushed her to the edge, that editing was always against her. And then the rumor dropped like gasoline on fire, that she had a flash drive. A drive full of unseen footage, off-camera moments that could flip the script and expose Yandy in a different light. Whether it was real or not, the internet grabbed it instantly. Fans debated all night. Was Rasheeda bluffing? Or was she sitting on the kind of footage that could steal her crown back? Some said it was desperation. Others whispered it was strategy. But one truth became clear: the war wasn't over. The slap was only the beginning, and the reunion had lit a fuse no one could blow out. By the time the reunion wrapped, the internet had already written its verdict. The DNA drag was everywhere, the slap replayed in slow motion with dramatic music, and Yandy's calm smirk had become a symbol of untouchable composure. Blogs stamped emergency headlines across timelines. YouTubers edited thumbnails with neon fonts screaming, "The night Atlanta changed forever." And fan pages looped her whisper, "Truth cuts deeper than lies," like it was gospel. Meanwhile, Rasheeda disappeared into silence. No Instagram posts, no boutique promos, no brand deals. And in the world of reality TV, silence is blood in the water. Every time her name trended, it was tied to memes, clown horns, or screenshots dragging her past. Even loyal fans hesitated, unsure if they could defend someone who had self-destructed so publicly. And yet behind the scenes, pride wouldn't let her rest. Rasheeda began working angles, planting seeds with bloggers, hinting that the slap wasn't a breakdown but a setup. She told people the producers pushed her past her limit, that Yandy had been protected, that editing always framed her as the villain. Some laughed it off, others leaned in, and then the whispers spread louder, that the flash drive was real, that it held unseen footage of Yandy, vulnerable moments, breakdowns off camera, things producers had cut to keep her image clean. Whether it existed or not didn't matter. The rumor alone was enough to spark obsession. Blogs speculated, podcasts dedicated episodes to it, and fans asked the question over and over, was Rasheeda bluffing, or was she preparing the biggest revenge play reality TV had ever seen? Yandy, of course, didn't flinch. She didn't clap back. She didn't even mention it. Instead, she posted a single picture of herself at home with her children, captioned, "The crown is peace." That silence spoke volumes. Brands reposted her, celebrities praised her, and fans filled her comments with crown emojis. Every move she made without words only solidified her power. She had turned stillness into strategy, and it worked. The more she ignored the noise, the louder her supporters became. Meanwhile, Kirk became the internet's favorite punching bag. Memes labeled him the silent assassin, the man who destroyed his wife's reputation by saying nothing at all. Old clips resurfaced, him swabbing his child, his late-night confessions, his infamous scandals, and fans dragged him mercilessly. They didn't just blame Rasheeda for snapping. They blamed him for years of humiliation that finally broke her. His silence, then and now, was the cruelest betrayal of all. By the end of the week, the reunion wasn't just an episode, it was legend. Fans built timelines of every scar Rasheeda had endured, stitching them into viral threads that painted her as a cautionary tale. The phrase "no smoke for Kirk" became a cultural slogan, printed on memes, captions, even t-shirts. Podcasts laughed their way through entire episodes, replaying the slap and the lunge with sound effects. YouTubers turned her meltdown into loops. And still, she stayed quiet publicly, but the whispers said she was plotting privately. Some claimed she was threatening lawsuits against VH1, saying she'd been exploited for ratings. Others swore she was reaching out to rival networks, ready to flip the narrative on her own terms. The most chilling rumor of all was that she had indeed passed the flash drive to a blogger. If true, it meant the war wasn't over. It was only shifting battlefields. And through it all, Yandy remained untouchable. Every post of hers went viral. Every silence was read as victory. Every caption about peace crowned her all over again. She didn't need to fight because the culture had already decided who won. But just before leaving the reunion set, dragged out with sweat still glistening on her face, Rasheeda turned to the cameras, her voice cracked but steady enough to leave a mark. "This ain't finished. I'll burn it all down before I let y'all bury me." Those words weren't empty. They were a vow, a warning that another storm was forming, darker, sharper, hungrier than the one the world had just witnessed. And so Atlanta buzzed with the fallout. Fans split between admiration for Yandy's silence and curiosity over Rasheeda's threats. For now, the crown belonged to one woman, the one who never raised her voice, never broke her composure, never let chaos shake her. But the other wasn't finished. Pride wouldn't let her rest. And as long as the possibility of that flash drive lingered, the war wasn't truly over. Because in reality TV, downfall is never the end. It's the setup for the next storm. For the end. It's the setup for the next storm.